I guess time flies when you're having fun, and this is actually our midterm Punctibyte. So we're headed into the week of October the 21st, and we have a lot of up and coming events. But I want to begin actually by thanking you for your help with last week. We had so much going on, and I had so many amazing assistants when it came to getting the practical exam ready and going, and of course, getting the midterm grades done, and you all did a marvelous job with that as well. In fact, I should have let you know that today I entered the midterm grades. Those are simply pass, D, or F. And I would love to share with you those students in your lab sections who maybe might need a little bit of extra assistance, or that we might want to send a helping hand out to. So let me know, and we'll go through that together at a time when we can discuss individual students. A few things that are coming this week are Open Lab, and Josh and Andy and John are going to be handling that on Friday, which, by the way, a huge thank you to Callie and Kyle and Amanda and all of you who helped with that unknown inoculation, and it now readies us to get going into the week where we will be passing out our unknowns. So during Lab 17, I'm going to talk about some of what we need to do to be prepared for them to receive their unknowns. So that'll be up and coming. And in fact, why don't I go ahead and jump really quickly into Lab 17 and what we need to do there. So I'm actually going to pull up the lecture guidelines, getting a little away with myself here on purpose so that we can talk about the fact that scheduling wise on Thursday you are going to need to bring the clues for your unknowns, so you'll want to have those printed and ready to go. And so towards those ends, I'm just going to bring up your TACD or jump drive, I guess, to show you where you're going to find those. So just go onto your unknown keys and click on that. And then you should have one that says Unknown List Fall Spring. And then remember, of course, that we are in the fall semester. So let me pull this up so that you can see this better. Notice that down on the bottom tabs, there's one that says Fall. And that's your list. You're probably all going to want to print one copy of this list so that you know which unknowns are which. And then under fall clues, that's what you're going to need for Thursday to give to the students. Now you're going to have to play with this a little bit to get it right for your lab section. So if you happen to be Amanda or Trevor, you're going to want to delete all of these cells except for section 13s, and then you're going to leave those there so that you can then print off just the clues for your lab section. So delete sections 10 through 12 and just leave section 13 so you can just print your section's clues. Then when we get to lab, you can cut those out, or you can cut those out ahead of time so that you can have the A and the B all together. One quick word to the wise, occasionally, depending on how your Excel is set, you might need to make sure that your cells are wide enough so that they accommodate the clues. So just making sure that you click on those and make certain that the clues fit into the cell so that you're not printing part of a clue. So just an FYI on that. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and jump back now to our calendar so that we know what else we have up and coming. And looking at Lab 16 on Tuesday, and a lot of action on Tuesday as well. We're going to pull up the TA guidelines for that. And I want to mention or remind you that that is the day that we will be doing the oxidase test. So you'll be lecturing on the oxidase test, but it's also the day that we will be demoing that at the station. So what I would ask for your help with is to see if we can agree on someone. It can be me or it can be any one of you that sits by the oxidase test station so that we can go ahead and show them how to do that oxidase test the very first time, so that they know how, when they do their unknown, to have a positive control and negative control and their unknown, because that reaction is so very time dependent. That is something that you can mention while you're doing the lecture. So while you are talking about the various things in the lecture, you can mention when you do get to the oxidase test, the importance of having the controls and the importance of doing all of those together. So that's actually not the oxidase. But when you do talk about the oxidase test, and you can talk about positive and negative controls and the time dependency of that test and whatnot. Do notice that this lecture is pretty packed full of material, but one of the things that I have tried to do with lecture 16 is to include questions in there that will give you an excuse to engage them. Which, by the way, many of you are doing a really good job of that and trying to really bring in the students. And towards those ends, I have video recorded those of you who did give a lecture on Thursday, and I'm going to hand you my phone at some point when you have a moment so that you can watch the short 3 to 5 minute clip that I have of you, and that's Andy and Amanda and Aaron. So I'll give that to you sometime on Tuesday so that you can check out your lecturing. You will find that you do pick up on little nervous habits that you have. Amanda likes to put her foot up on the bench in front of her and kind of rock. And so that's something you're going to pick up with Andy will pick up on some auditory pauses. And so those are things you can look at. I would like for everyone, if they have time, to look at Aaron's video, because while there are some things he'll pick up on that he needs to improve, I was very impressed with your overarching body language and the way in which you actually move around the room. That comes with experience, and part of what allows Aaron to do that is that he's been lecturing for so very long. But in bringing ourselves back to lecture 16, please do use these prompting questions that are nestled throughout the lecture to allow you to engage the students, and that's a big part of why these are here. We also want to make sure that we talk individually with the students, and something that I did last Thursday that worked really well is I just decided on 3 different questions that I wanted to go around and ask each group. And that would give me the excuse to sort of more personally engage with each group. So I would go around to each group and say, you know, why are we stabbing the BAP? And then I would just see if they had an idea of why we were doing that. So this is something you can do. You can go around to the groups and you can say, maybe when they're looking at their throat swabs right at the beginning of the hour, you can say, what types of hemolysis do you see on there? And then you're really engaging individually with them and leaving them more individually accountable for their answers to those questions. So both in the form of the lecture with the big group and in the form of the small groups, I think it's really great to engage with them and come up with questions that you can use to do so. Okay, great. So that gets us through a bit about both Lab 16 and Lab 17. Lab 17, of course, will be the one where we are passing out those unknowns and where we do need to pass out those unknown clues. But it also will be the lecture in which we need to assign the hypotheses. So once again, on assigning those hypotheses, we are adding an additional nuance to that. So with my hissy fit about practical exams, remember that one of the things that will take the place of the second practical exam is that what used to be extra credit on the hypotheses and references assignment is actually now going to be essential for every student in the class. And I would like to invite their creativity on this assignment. So that is to say that I would like for them to all submit some sort of flowchart or document that tells us what tests they need to do to identify their unknown and what will be the most definitive test for that unknown. So let me see if I can pull up from the assignment. So I'm just pulling up the assignment description here and remind ourselves what was once extra credit that is now going to be a graded portion that is going to be one of those skill sets that we're looking for in lieu of the practical exam. And here it is, the hypotheses and references. And notice that there was a possibility for a point of extra credit here based on your hypotheses predict the results for the most definitive biochemical tests. This is now going to become a huge part of their submission. Instead of just the definitive biochemical tests, I would like for them to give us a flow chart and or written description of all of the tests that would be needed in sequence to identify the unknown, and then to focus then on what the definitive tests will be. So we're really looking for their understanding of what those unique biochemical tests will do for them and how they will enable their unknown identification. So we will say that instead of this being 1 point of extra credits, this is going to be a 10-point assignment that will go towards what would have been their practical exam. So that is going to be an important submission, and it's going to be an important announcement, being as that it's not written into the assignment description at this point. It's kind of fun to be unique and creative and new. I get a little jazzed about it. So that being said, I think that clears up what we have going on for Lab 17, as well as Lab 16, and just a little information on both of those lectures. Once again, I will be video recording those of you whom I haven't had a chance to record, so you can look forward to that as well, and hopefully we can all work to make improvements on lectures. So just a couple more things that I wanted to hit on. Current events, always in the news, and so there's a couple things. Andy had sent an awesome article the other day about a modification of the glycolytic pathway, and most expressly transition steps that can be modified to be energy conserving. So essentially what they were able to do, and let me see if I can bring this up. So this is actually the article that was published in Nature, and what they have reported on is a non-oxidative glycolysis, essentially noting that when pyruvate isn't converted into acetyl-CoA, of course we always lose that CO2, that there's always a decarboxylation, and so they're reporting on a non-oxidative step in which they've been able to conserve that carbon, namely getting 3 acetyl-CoAs from the pyruvate molecule. So it's crazy to think about making this metabolic pathway even more efficient than it is, and it has wild implications and applications. The other one that I wanted to just briefly mention is we have talked again about the role that the microbiome plays in health, and this is an interesting article in just a public perspective article in Scientific American that talks a little bit about the role that bacteria may play in depression, and the idea of a leaky gut playing a role in escape of certain immunogenic compounds that are bacterial that may play a role in depression symptoms. So just another fun article that I thought I would bring up and share with you today. And I want to end things today by looking at Canvas just for one more fun thing that we have learned how to do in Canvas. And I don't know whether this will come up as useful to everyone, but I did want to note that we can make groups in Canvas. And so if you click on the People tab on the left and you go up to the upper right and you say View User Groups, you'll see that some of the students have created their own user groups for their poster presentations, and also that we can make a new set of groups. So again, up in the upper right, we can make a new set of groups, and if we want to, we can say that we want a group for every lab group. We want them to each have their own lab group. So we could say lab groups, and we could create this new set of groups, and then so we'll just say that lab groups, and then say I'll create the groups manually, and you create a category. And then what you can do is you can add a group, so you put plus there, and then you name the group, and then you can add in students, whomever you would like to add to the group. So just a quick nuance of Canvas that I'm learning a little bit more about at this point, and there's always more to learn. So I'll leave things with that, and have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. I can't wait to see you all on Tuesday. You rock my world.